this now. South Africans have until the 31st of January to make written submissions on land expropriation without compensation. To do this, Section 25 of the Constitution must be amended. Now, government says this will correct the injustices of the past, but some do not agree. For more on this, I'm joined by the CEO of the Vumelana Advisory Fund, that's Peter Sato, who joins me in studio this morning. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much for making the time. So your organization helps beneficiaries of the land reform program to put their land essentially to profitable use. How is this done?
Absolutely. The Vumelana is a non-profit public benefit organization which really assists beneficiaries of land reform to utilize their land. We do that through funding transaction advisory services. Essentially, we pay for specialized service providers who assist these beneficiaries of land reform to attract private investors into their land so that we can create much needed jobs, income and skills.
Your organization, having been established in 2012, talk to us about your success rate in forming these commercially viable partnerships between the beneficiary communities and potential investors.
Yeah. We have been around for just over 5 years, and during this period we've concluded about 20 projects and which have got a potential to raise in excess of 610 million rands and would impact positively on a great number of beneficiaries of land reform. We have a number of projects that we are currently supporting which, once concluded, would probably raise just under R1 billion rands in private investments.
Post-settlement conditions, that's the worrying element for any community that gets, resettled on a piece of land. What kind of problems do these beneficiaries face?
Well, the reality is at the point when land is actually transferred to the communities, they do not have the requisite skills to work the land, they do not have access to finance, they do not even have access to markets. And our view as Vumelana is that having, or rather creating these private partnerships with providers, with really your investors, is the most expedient way through which you can address these challenges, because you cannot just rely on government. There's a huge demand on the government fiscus. So we believe that the private sector has got an invaluable role to play in order to ensure that we can have sustainable land reform programs in this country.
Critical question, and my last question to you. Are there major issues that the land reform process faces that simply cannot be resolved or fixed by amending Section 25 of the Constitution?
Well, the reality is that amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution is just but one of many interventions that are being put in place to try and actually improve on land reform. The reality is that there are a number of challenges that are besetting the land reform space, and unless some of these issues are addressed, we will continue to experience serious challenges.
Give us some of those examples.
Well, I'll just mention but a few. There's a need to balance the manner in which really land is acquired and used. The current debates around land expropriation without compensation is somewhat reduced to debates around acquisition of land. We need to really address the issue of what happens to the land once it has been acquired. So for us, that's really key, and that has largely been ignored. And we need to come up with creative ways through which that can be addressed. And as Vumelana, this is something that we've been doing for many years, and as I've said, we believe that partnering with the private sector is one of the ways through which we can address this. That's the one thing. The second thing is we need to streamline, and we need to make sure that the processes around land restitution are streamlined. And for us, really two things really stand out that needs to be addressed. We might be aware that during the first phase or the first round of land claims, about 90% of the claimants our claims were settled through financial compensation. We need to make sure that our processes are much more efficient so that this can be resolved speedily. Secondly, for those high value and complex claims, we need to make sure that we draw in expertise to ensure that those land claims are actually finalized expeditiously to make sure that people do not end up losing jobs, to make sure that the existing businesses continue to function. And for us to do that, we need to draw in the expertise of experienced transaction advisors so that they can actually make this happen. And this is something that we've been doing, and we are saying we do not have to reinvent the wheel. We've paid school fees, we've done this over a number of years, and we are more than willing, and we are working with government, by the way, very closely in most of these programs.
Peter Sotho, thank you very much for making the time to at least flesh out some of the critical issues around this land reform process. He is the CEO of Vumelana Advisory Fund.